Hello and welcome to this episode of Eye on OR Tambo SEZ. I'm Zanella Morrison. Gauteng continues to be the economic engine of South Africa, contributing 34% to the national GDP and consistently outperforming national growth rates. Amid South Africa's G20 presidency, positioning the province as a premier investment destination remains a top priority. Today we'll be discussing the upcoming provincial investment event, the Gauteng Investment Conference, and joining me to explore how we continue to promote investment in the province is Gauteng's MEC for Economic Development and Finance, Lebogang Maile. Lebogang, thank you so much for joining us. It's an interesting time, beginning of the year. You've done a lot of work in understanding the global as well as the local appetite for investment. How do you see Gauteng's proposition for investors unfolding?
Indeed, it has been an eventful year, even if it's in the beginning, with President Trump taking office, having been given the G20 presidency, though it was in December, and Davos having taken place. We have had the mining in Daba as well, in South Africa. The president has addressed the nation through the State of the Nation address. The Minister of Finance will be announcing the budget. The Premier of the province will be delivering the State of the Province address. I'll be delivering the budget of the province. So all these events are interrelated, interdependent, because everything that the president has said, that the premier says, the minister of finance, and that we say are at the end of the day about taking forward the objectives that we set ourselves as a country in the next 5 years or 4 years now. As you know, the government of national unity has prioritized inclusivity in the economy, has prioritized fighting poverty, fighting unemployment, making sure that there is good governance and that we fight crime and all the challenges that we face. And Gauteng as a province is very strategic for a number of reasons. Firstly, because of its position in the economy. As you know, we contribute about 34% in the GDP. And I argue that 35% has been stagnant for the longest of time. And I think we have to increase it and set an ambitious target.
And on the back of that, now you do have to be very ambitious to increase it, but in a very tough economic environment as well, not only locally only, but globally. What is it that you believe are going to be the front runners of the change and the number increase that you want to see?
There are, firstly, as you know, there's objective and subjective factors which we are confronting. Some are things related to macroeconomic issues which are beyond us. There's micro issues that we can deal with. You've got small, what I'll call small issues, and deliberately I'm using the word small. They're not small. They are also big because they have huge impact. And this is like just the environment, how our cities are, the cleanliness of our cities. You can't want investors to come, whether local or, because often when we talk about investors, we refer to foreign investors. In fact, we've got a lot of local investors who are migrating to other provinces because they are not happy, robots are not working. There's potholes and there's crime. The cities are not clean. The turnaround time for applications and compliance issues takes long and all that. So we We have to deal with those issues, firstly, and then secondly, we must deal with what I'll call the big issues. And what are those big issues? Your infrastructure, the roads, apart from the potholes now, expanding them because we have more cars on our roads. Infrastructure like rail is very important in moving goods for a province like ours. The efficiency of our airports. OR Tambo recently had challenges, fuel and all that. How do we make sure that we then create a conducive environment for both local and international investors to come in? How do we create jobs? How do we use the budget, both provincial and national budget, as an instrument that can help us to make interventions and direct the economy, because there's huge procurement of goods and services by government at all levels, not only at provincial and national, even in the municipalities. And I think that becomes an opportunity to also direct the economy and be able to transform our economy.
Now, all great leaders are facing with exactly what you've gone through. Quite a myriad of challenges, a lot of complex but interrelated issues that impact each other. So when you sit down and you've looked at all of this and you've distilled all of it, where do you think is the key that you want to press on? Like, what is the one or two things that for you would be important, that if you got those right, we would start to see the changes starting to take place?
I think the first thing is to be at one in terms of what needs to be done, the three spheres of government, because that can have its own complications. The president can outline the vision, the premier, the mayors can repeat it and all that, but if it's not internalized, it's not crystallized, it's not institutionalized, you have a problem. So in other words, you can talk about perfecting planning, in other words. But of course, before you plan, you must agree on what direction you want to take and what is the vision. So once you perfect planning at all the spheres, you must then make sure that there is coordination, better coordination. And then thirdly, there's the facilitation function. And this is very important because it's not just between the three spheres of government, it's also between government in its entirety, the civil society, the private sector, and the international community, starting with the continent and all that. But also, we need to make sure that there is efficient utilization of resources. After doing all these things of planning, facilitating and all that, the resources at our disposal as government, there's a lot of wastage. I mean, being responsible for finances of the province, I have realized that there's a lot of things we can do differently, and we can get greater outcomes and more impact. And that's one of the things we're working on in terms of reorganizing our budget. Exactly.
How is the level of synergy coming along, and the level of collaboration, which has really been trumped by the president from the very beginning? We shouldn't use the word trumped, but it has been, it has been propelled by the president. Collaboration being so key, and also private-public partnerships. The fruits of that coming through?
Yeah, and in fact, I'm glad that you are asking that question, because when you listen to the State of the Nation address, the president is able to demonstrate clearly on areas where we have made progress. Take, for instance, the issuing of visas, the backlog that was there, and many other issues that through Vulindlela operation they've been able to resolve. I mean, in Gauteng, a few years back, we just cut the issuance of what is known as the EIAs. Some people call it, well, it's a permit you need before you start constructing and all that. The EIAs, environmental impact assessments. It used to take 365 days. We reduced to three months, which is 90 days. We will be working to reducing it to 31 days or 30 days. So what we need to do, we must not talk about red tape in general terms. We must say in construction, for instance, it used to take, I think, 24 months, if not more, or before a construction project can start. We must say in construction, how do we reduce that 24 months to, let's say, 6 months? Go to another sector and say in this sector it takes so many. We must have targets that are realistic, that are specific, that are time bound, and we must communicate them, but we must also be prepared to be held accountable by the public, because if we don't communicate this, and I'm happy that the President, the Premier have said we will sign agreements with the ministers and the MECs, and those will be made public. We will be signing ours here in Gauteng, and it will be able to detail all those issues, and we just need to be transparent. And you know, you were talking about synergies. There is so much knowledge and skills in other sectors of society that, because sometimes there is no proper coordination and communication, people who are willing and who want to impart their skills, in most cases they don't even want to be paid, by the way, but they don't know how to reach, and that's why we now have an open door policy. And we engage with the different sectors so that those who want to come volunteer their services, also help to facilitate and open a lot of doors. You'll be surprised that there's a lot of work that is done by SOEs, for instance, in our province. And for the longest of time, we have not been coordinating properly with them. And in certain instances, there's been duplication. So the synergies are very important. The coordination is very important.
And I think it's interesting to get it direct from the MEC, Lebogang Mayile himself. For me, the takeaway is the importance of ensuring that we are held accountable for the things that we want to do for the country, that we are open to the contribution of others, and that Gauteng ultimately becomes a destination that we all see thrive in future. Thank you so much to the Gauteng MEC for Economic Development and Finance, Lebogang Mayile. He joined us in studio today, and to you who joined us, thank you so much as well. For me, Zanele Morrison, it's goodbye for now.